Hi, welcome to the training webinar. I'm just checking at the bottom. I had some sound problems earlier and I still have not fully resolved them, but at least sound appears to be working within Zoom. So I think we're good. Welcome to the training webinar. I'm Dale Franks. We're going to pick up right where we left off last week. We were working on our timeline. We got most of it done, but there are still some loose ends that we need to pick up, and we need to begin working on the email template for our sample application. So let's go ahead and get right into it. And well, my screen appears to be incorrectly sized, so let me go to a 1920 by 1080 screen size there so we can see everything. I think we're good there now. And let's take a look at where we left off. Now, last time we left off by testing our loop here and ensuring that all of our activities worked and that whenever we wanted to initiate or resubmittal, we could do that. Great. What we didn't touch was this final disposition activity. This is just a notify activity. All it's going to do is send an email message. So as such, it has no participants. And until we select the who's going to receive notifications here, it's not even going to send an email to anyone because there is no one for whom an email has been or a recipient has been configured to accept the email. So let's talk about emails and email templates and how they work. One thing that a notification activity does, it's the only thing that it does, is send an email notification. It doesn't assign a task or anything like that. It just sends an email. So this is a manually configured email notification, and you can use this anytime you just want to send someone an email. Now, these aren't the only notifications that get sent by the system. If we leave the final disposition activity and just take a look at one of our user activities, and we look at the notifications tab there is this checkbox, notify participants when activity starts. This also sends a notification, and it sends a notification to whoever is listed on the participants tab of the activity. The difference is the type of email that gets sent. Notice that on this notifications tab, I still have the same add notification button that I have on the notification tab of the final disposition activity. I can send additional emails, but this checkbox sends a special email to the participant. And that email has a link to the task so that when the user receives an email and they click on a task link in that email, it is going to go back, and in most cases what it does is it opens the form. There are some other options that we'll discuss a little later. But most of the time, you just send them this email URL system variable inside the email template that constructs the link to the task. Now, depending on whether I'm a participant in the task or whether I'm just some additional notificatee, person who is notified, they're both going to get a link to take a look at the form if I use the email URL system variable to construct the URL. That's the simplest way of doing it because it just lets Process Director construct the email for you or the link for you, and you don't have to worry much about it. But it's going to be two different links. The person who receives a task notification, who is a participant, It's going to receive a link that will open the form in task context. That is to say, it will open it as a task for that user, and at the bottom of the form or wherever you have placed your actions, your action buttons on the form, usually at the bottom, just above the routing slip, it will show them their action buttons. So approve, deny, return to submitter, whatever the results that are possible for that activity are, will be shown in those action buttons. Any notification that is sent via this add notification button that you have here, where we've just added this new little notification, they will get a different link, and that link will not open the form in task context. All they'll see on the form as far as action buttons go are the OK and cancel buttons. They don't get action buttons. They won't be able to complete their task. One thing I notice is a lot of customers will just turn this off for whatever reason, and then say, okay, well, I want to, notify the participant of this activity via email. Well, you can do that, but whenever they open the form from down here, from the link that gets provided from down here, it's not going to be open in task context. They won't be able to complete their task from the email link because it specifically opens it out of task context. And it doesn't matter if they're assigned a task in this activity, because they are going to get a non-task email. So this button becomes, right, it's not a button, it's a checkbox, but this checkbox becomes really important. There are very, very few instances outside of just not wanting to send the participants an email at all, at which you would uncheck this box. There are almost no useful instances where you would uncheck this box and then send a notification down here from the bottom, and you can have multiple notifications. I can't think of any useful circumstance where I would want to send a notification to the participant in an activity and not have that activity open in task context automatically. So I can't imagine why you would uncheck this button and then create a notification down here whenever the task starts. I don't know why you would do that. The whole purpose of this button is to provide that automatic task notification. Now, in the case of our final activity, final disposition, all I need to do is tell the person who submitted this request what the disposition was, whether it was approved or disapproved, so that they have a notification that just tells them what the final disposition of their activity was. I always want to tell whoever initiated the process timeline, but I always, the vast majority of the time, if not always, I want to tell the initiator what happened to their request, something they generally need to know. So I actually have a couple of different ways of doing this. Now, in this particular case, I just have this notification activity. I mean, they're not really a participant in the process, except if they have to resubmit it, as we discussed last week. Outside of that, it's really going to the supervisor and the manager and whatever other approvers that need to be approved. What they need is a notification that their activity ended as a minimum. Now, it might be that rather than just sending a final disposition email, you would want to assign a task to them, and then they would open up the task, and via the form, they would, acknowledge that the activity was approved or denied or whatever it might have been. So that is also a possibility. I can think of reasons why you would want to make a user activity of the final disposition. so that the user actually has to open the form and actually has to hit a button, say an acknowledge result that acknowledges that they've, read through, they understand now whether their request has been approved or denied, and you actually have a record that they have done so. And so that way, if they come back later and say, well, I didn't know that this had been approved, or I didn't know it had been denied, or whatever, you then have a user activity that you can pop open and say, well, you were assigned the final disposition, acknowledgement activity, and you hit acknowledge. Therefore, you were in fact informed because you completed the task that was assigned to you. Or alternatively, yes, it doesn't look like you have a task assigned to you, but it doesn't look like you've completed it yet. It may be more believable that you didn't know that your request had been approved or denied. This, I think, is largely a matter of management as to what you would expect from your initiator when a request is submitted, and to know what the final disposition of that request might be. But at minimum, you should at least provide a final disposition. And since what we're really talking about in this particular series of, what things do I need at minimum to build a functional, full-featured application, we're going to go with the minimal requirement here of just having a final disposition notification, and that is just going to notify the submitter. So we're going to open this up, and now notice, because this is just a notification activity, there's no checkbox at the top that says just assign, send a task email. There are no assignees to a notifications activity. All a notification does, especially whenever you come down to the bottom and you click add notification, all it does is just send them an email. And all you need to do is to determine when the email goes. So in this case, well, it's when activity starts, because there are no other possible events that occur in a notification activity. So this is your only choice. So when the activity starts, we are going to notify, in this case, the timeline initiator. And now when this activity runs, an email will be sent to the timeline initiator. One other thing to keep in mind when we're talking about notifications is that we do control at the activity level what email template gets used. So we're going to talk about email templates now, because we have to, because we've now got the one activity that is going to send an exogenous notification. We have 3 other user activities that are going to send automatic notifications. And we only have this one email template that we haven't configured at all. We haven't even looked at it. So it's completely blank. So we're going to have to construct that. Now, how we're going to construct this and what we're going to place into it depends on the notifications that we have in our process timeline. So right now we have 2 notifications at minimum. I would argue we have 3 notifications. We have 1 for task assignments. So our supervisor approval, and I'll make that more, not even task assignments, approval task assignments. We have a manager approver and a supervisor approver that are going to be assigned approval tasks. We also have a 3rd task that is the initiator resubmittal. So we may want to send a different message for the initiator resubmittal. And than we do for the 2 task assignments for the 2 approval notifications. And then we have this notification here, which is our final disposition notification. So just looking at it that way, we have 3 different sort of types of notifications, or at least 2.5, right? Because we have 3 task assignment emails that are going to go out, 1 final disposition email. Technically, we could include the initiator resubmittal as just a normal task assignment, and that would give us 2 email templates. But of course, anything over 1 email template becomes a problem for us, because we have to be able to send different email templates to different users at different times. So if we want to use the scenario that I've described, where the initiator, resubmittal, the two approval activities, and the final disposition activities are 3 different emails, you would think that, well, what we need are 3 different email templates. That's not true, and that's not how we're going to do it. But it is possible to actually build it that way. It might be possible to build, well, I say it might be, it would be possible to build 3 different email templates and to send them at different times, because on every activity on the notifications tab, I can choose a different email template. Now, we do have some situations where there are very complex activities that do different things, and you may decide in that scenario that you want to build multiple email templates. Now, that does make your job a little bit harder. Our basic assumption is that in the Options tab, you are going to set a default email template. And by default, that will be the email template that gets sent for every notification. You can still set the default email template, and yet for a specific activity, so let's go back down here to supervisor approval, I can still create a special template if I wanted, a different template than the building apps email template, and set it as the template for that activity. You have the flexibility of doing that, but in most cases, I would not say it's the vast majority of cases, but I would say in a majority of cases, you can get by with a single email template. And what you have to do, though, is set that email template up so that the appropriate message is sent to the appropriate user. So with all of this in mind, all of this background information, and with our final disposition notification activity now configured so that we can send our disposition to the timeline initiator, now we can start working out our email. We can start working on our email template. So we know the 3 basic scenarios that we have. So let's build an email template. I probably want to save this. So let's save that. And now let's go and build our email template, which, as we mentioned previously, is blank. There are many, many different ways to skin this cat, but what we're going to do is we're going to build a multiple notification email template. So what we're going to need to use are some embedded sections so that we can show or hide different information depending on what I am sending back to the user. So there are some things that are going to be universal in the email template, right? I know who I'm sending the email to. So that can go in sort of the common area of the email. In fact, let's do that. We'll just go dear. And now we've got to start putting information into our email template. Now, let's remember what an email template is. An email template does one thing. It builds the text message that will be sent via email. That's all an email is a plain text message. I know that Outlook or Thunderbird have little built-in browsers, and Google, same thing, Gmail, same thing. They can take an HTML message and they can parse it as if it were a web page and show you with all the pretty formatted text and even pictures, although the default is to strip all images from emails. It's still just a text message, even though it doesn't look like that. The text that you're sending is literally a string of HTML that gets parsed by your mail client, Outlook, and it constructs the pretty HTML page for you taking that HTML text, but it is just plain text. That means we have a lot of limits on what we can place into an email template. We can't place any form controls on it because almost all of the form controls are data entry controls. There's no data entry in an email message. And even if there were, it still wouldn't work because the email message that the user receives in Outlook is not logged in any way to Process Director. So even if it were possible to send a form via email, it wouldn't work because your email client knows nothing about Process Director. I open up Outlook and Outlook has no clue what Process Director is and no method to log into Process Director. What I can send in an email is any value that can be converted to text when the email message is constructed. So that means if I want to send form data or process data or the task instructions for a task assignment, whatever it might be, I can use system variables to pull that information out of Process Director and place them on the page as text. But what I can't do is actually have form controls that require the user to fill out anything. They're just meaningless in the context of an email. So we're going to have to use system variables to do most of the work that we're going to do. Now, the upside of the email template is that it is based on a form definition. And so what that means is we do have access to all of the, conditions, and it knows what is happening in Process Director and what our running activity is and what the result of the previous activity was and all of that good stuff. It knows. And because it knows, we can run all sorts of conditions that will be evaluated when the email template is invoked, and it will show all of the conditions. And that's going to be important for us because we are going to have 3 different messages in 3 different sections of our form. And we can determine based on the message that we're sending, based on conditions, what message I want to use to construct the email template. So let's start off with the basic information. I need to identify the user. I need to send a greeting. I mean, technically, I suppose I don't have to, but it's certainly the courteous thing to do. So I'm going to use a system variable to specify the user. So I'm just going to go to other controls here. I'm going to go to the system variable control and insert it. And I am going to send this to email_user. This is a system variable that actually only makes sense in the context of an email and is only used by Process Director to identify to whom the email is being sent. In other words, the recipient. Now, if I send to multiple recipients, each recipient will get their name parsed as the email user. So it's going to send, let's say I had 4 participants to an activity, right? It's going to send 4 emails. It's not going to send 1 email to 4 people. It's going to send 4 separate emails. And for each one of those emails, it knows who the participant is that it's sending to. So it is going to parse their name out as the email user. And like all user system variables, which is what this is, email user by default returns the user's name. And so it will be Dear Dale Franks or Dear whoever whenever the email gets sent. So that's the first system variable. Now, I'm placing this up here at the top because I'm going to assume that I want to send the same email to, or I want to have the same greeting for everyone. That's not really part of the message. All of the other information that I'm going to send, whether it's initiate a resubmittal, a task assignment, or an approval task assignment, or the final disposition, they're going to each get their own messages, all of which would have to be placed inside embedded sections. There's also one more control that every email needs, but this gets a little trickier depending on how you want to configure this control. I'm going to need an email data control for my message. Now, with an email data control, I can only have one email data control visible at one time. I have seen customers do one of two different things, either of which is perfectly fine. You can place a single email data control in your email message, and that will just be the same email data control that's used for all the messages. And if you do that, it does become a little bit easier, right? So I could just have, let's go to other controls here, and let's throw in our email data control. I can just have a single email data control, and then I can just place all of my messages. I was about to say after it, I think I'd place my messages up here at the top. Before it, and I would just have this email data control just kind of hanging out here at the bottom of my form, and it would be a single email data control. And that works, assuming that you genericize it properly. Because the email data control has a subject. And you might want to customize that subject for each of your different emails. If you do, that's fine, but it will mean that you'll need multiple email controls. But technically, I could just make a generic email control that just has as the subject, request. And we'll go request. And I believe the form field that I used was request number. I think, if I remember correctly, I didn't actually check it. Oh, I need to put the colon there so we know that that's our request number, and just call it request number, whatever the request number is, notification. Okay, that's fine. That's generic enough. And I could use this single email data control for every notification I sent. I don't know that I'm super happy with that because it's very generic. So let's say I'm on request number 500. It'll just say request number 500 notification. It doesn't really tell me anything. It doesn't tell me I have a task assignment or that I've been requested to resubmit. So in our particular case, while I could create a generic email data control, I probably am not going to do that. I'm probably going to want an email data control in each of my sections. And that's fine. I can do that, and it works great, but I do need to configure my system so that it works properly, so that I can have multiple email data controls. There are some other things I can do with my email data control. I don't usually have to, but I can. I have a from email address. There are times, and I've seen a lot of customers do this, where even though in the installation settings properties page and in the global variables page, especially the global variables page, you set the default from email address for all of your notifications. So all of the email notifications by default come from that one email address. It's usually a no reply email. It's just used as an outgoing email outbox to send messages from. It's usually unattended. Nobody looks at that email. If I do want someone to look at the email, I can override it on each individual email data control. I have a from email and a from display. These two get a little tricky because I have to set them up properly. If I use more than, because I could have, well, I can only have one from email, so I guess it doesn't matter. If it was a to email, that would be problematic. But a from email, you can only have one. So forget what I said. I was thinking about having multiple from emails, but you would never have multiple from emails. You'll only have one. So you can specify the email address from which to send the notification, and then the display name that will go on that email address, right? So, well, technically that's not I was about to go Dale at BP Logix, but that's not technically my full email address. So I could set my own from email address and set it to me. And the reason why you might want to do this is if the user does reply, you might want that email to go somewhere other than the unattended no reply email address that normally sends the notifications. You are going to want, if they hit reply, you're going to want them to be able to reply to a person. Now, this is not always true, but it is often true. And so even though you do have a formalized from address, that's your default from address for everything, you may want to alter that behavior to ensure that if I hit reply, I'm going to reply to a person, not to an unattended email box. So you have those options there. The rest of the stuff, well, you might want to CC, so you throw in a comma separated list of email addresses for a CC and BCC if you wanted to send it. The group name and the locale, that's a more complex thing. You will use it rarely, if at all. Actually, I don't think I've ever used either of these two, but they're documented in the documentation. If you want to know more about those, read the documentation on email templates, and it'll talk about the email data control and its properties. The additional properties on the email data control are actually quite important. If I have document attachments, do I want to send those document attachments as part of the email? Sometimes you do, especially for a final disposition email. We're not going to do it this time because it would require that we go in and change our timeline and have to build in a convert to PDF, a custom task activity, and then but sometimes what you want to do when the process is over on your final disposition email, you want to just send them a PDF of the form so that they can see it in its final state. I run across customers that do this routinely. I've run across customers who never do it at all. This is one of those optional things. But if you want to send them any document attachments, then you need to add the process attachments. Now, this is where the group name comes in, where I might only want to send them some of the attachments and only the attachments in a specific group. I'm sure someone has used this and has done this. I never have, but of course, I work on a much more surface level of the product on the stuff that I create and present than many customers have running in production. So my experience may not be dispositive, but when you click add process attachments to email, and that will almost always be what you would click, what you would check, because by default, we want you to add document attachments to the process, which is to say the process timeline instance, and not to the form instance. So you'd rarely click add eForm attachments to email. And I can't believe that still says eForm, but here we are in 2026, it still says it. You have the option of attaching to both the process and the form. Our recommendation is always that you attach to the process. There are certain circumstances, for example, you don't have a process where that's not possible. And so you have to attach it to the form or you can't attach it anywhere. But for the most part, you would click the add process attachments. And you would have to, because if that is unclicked, none of the process attachments will be sent in the email. Now, we're not going to do that in this email today. We won't have any process attachments. So we're going to ignore that for now, but you need to be aware of that property. There's another property you need to be aware of, and that is the cancel email property. If you click on cancel email, no email will be sent. It'll start to construct the email. It'll read your email data control. Note that it says cancel email, and it will just not send the email. So there are cases where I might not want to send an email. Like, most cases I would want to. But if a certain condition applied, or perhaps it was a certain recipient, let's say like a C-suite recipient who you don't want to clog their email inbox, then you might just construct a section on the email control for them that is visible when they are the recipient, and click cancel email, and therefore all of the other people might get an email, but your C-suite recipient won't. Whether this cancel email works or not, obviously depends on the visibility of the email data control. Just like any other control, you have visibility options, whether a field is visible or hidden, or a conditional based visibility scenario where you can determine whether you want to see it or not. The thing about an email template is that only one email data control is ever going to be visible at one time. If you inadvertently happen to make two email controls visible at a given time, then the first email control that it encounters, or email data control that it encounters, will be the email data control that is set as the email data control for all of the emails that get sent during that round. So it's very important, if you're going to use multiple email data controls, which we are, rather than a generic email data control that just sends out a generic notification, then it's important to set exclusive conditions, mutually exclusive conditions, to ensure that only one of those email data controls can ever be displayed at any given time. What we're going to do now is we're going to create our three messages, and we're going to encapsulate each of our messages inside an embedded section control. Each of those three messages is going to have its own email data control, and then we are going to test to be sure that we are sending the right messages to the right people. At least I hope we will, because it is 10:38. So let us get started on doing this. Now, we're going to use some embedded section controls, and embedded section controls will show or hide, which is how we're going to use them, to show or hide that section. They'll show or hide all of their contents. We have to be a little careful how we do this, just in terms of how we want things to appear visually. So I'm going to go down to the second line here and place my cursor. And that is where I am going to place my first embedded section control. And what that will have, what that will enable me to do is have one line here, and then there is a line break that takes me to the second line. And that second line, where my cursor is flashing now, is where our message will start. Also, what we're going to do is we are going to have to butt these controls together, these embedded section controls, to control our spacing so that we don't have, weird spacing. Let me create some pretend embedded section controls. Embedded section control looks like a square bracket. So we have a square bracket. Okay, we've begun our section. We can throw some content in. And a lot of times what I see people doing is they'll put in the end of the embedded section, which looks like a square bracket. They'll then go to the next line put in their new embedded section, and then go to the third line and do the same. This is going to look ugly when the email gets sent, because if these two, well, actually, if this section is the one that's visible, everything is going to look fine. If this is the visible one, you're going to get some extra space on the top. And if this is the one visible section, then you're going to get, oops, I didn't mean to do that. These two lines, their spacing is still going to show up, because my spacing to go to a new line starts after the embedded section end. In order to make this spacing work properly and make everything pretty, what I got to do is I have got to place these sections right next to each other with their own messaging. So let's put in our first embedded section. So the first thing we are going to do is our normal task notification that will go to our supervisor approval and manager approval participants. So I'm just going to go to layout. I'm going to grab the embedded section, and I am going to call this approver section. Now, sometimes, just to be sure that all of my section controls show up right next to each other when I go to the Form Controls tab, it's not as important on an email as it is on a normal form if I'm using embedded section controls. But I'll often use the word section first and then just call it approval. So it'd be section approval. I keep turning my caps lock on. So it'd be called section approval. Now, if I do it this way and I name the other one, section resubmit and then section final, then all three of these will appear together if they start with the name section. It's just a personal thing, but I find it easy if I start with the word section for all of my section controls. It sticks them all together on the Form Controls tab and just makes them a little bit easier to deal with. We're only going to have 3 section controls. We're not going to really have any other controls on an email template, so it is less necessary. So it would be fine to call this approval section on an email template, but that's just not the usual naming convention that I use. So, it's up to you. You can use either or. So I've got, dear recipient, now what message do I want to send? Well, it is a task assignment email. So there are a couple of things that I do want to ensure that it contains. I already know that it contains a greeting that will have the recipient name, so that's already taken care of. But I do need to let them know that they have a task assignment assigned to them. I need to let them know what the instructions are that they have been given for completing that task. And I've got to be able to give them the link that they need to click in the email and open up the form in task context so they can complete their task. So let's give them a brief message. You have been assigned a task for request number, and then we'll put request number in there. I really hope that that is my request number. You're going to have to forgive me. We're going to have to save and close this thing. I got to go to be sure that I'm going to use request number, submitter, and whatever the submission date was. So let me go into my form, request number, submitter, and submit date. In fact, I may just want to copy this for good reason, because I'm also going to have to put I'm also going to have to make a custom subject for my email data control. So while we're here, we'll just put task assignment colon request number, whatever, by whoever submitted it on submit date. So now they know it's a task assignment. They know what the request number is. They know who the submitter is, and they know what the submit date was, which they're all going to get as the subject of their email. And I also wanted to be sure that request number was, in fact, the form field system variable that I needed. So you have been assigned a task. You have, let's make it a little bit friendlier. You've been assigned a task for request number whatever. The task instructions and link to access the request are shown below. And we'll go to a new line and we'll go with bold. We'll go task instructions colon, and then we'll turn our bold off and we will drop in our system variable for the task instructions. So we'll go to other controls, system variable control, and we'll go with task instructions. Let's be sure that I've spelled that correctly. And instructions. And then we'll go to a new line and we'll go click. Actually, that's not what we will do. We will add a hot link control. So let's go to other controls. And where is hot link? Email data item image circulation data. Hot link. Wow, that took me a while to find. So here's our hot link control, and we'll just say click here. Click here. And we need to provide a URL. So what our text will be is click here for our link, and we're going to make our link. And to make our link, we're just going to use the same system variable for all of these, which is email underscore URL. This will construct via system variable the appropriate URL that the user will be able to click to get access to their task, either in task context or not, whatever is appropriate whenever they receive the email, as we discussed earlier. Open a new window, completely unnecessary because this is going to be in an email. So there's nothing really nothing else we really need to do here. So we have our link. So click here to view the request form. That's really all we need for this message. And we'll look at our email data control, which we have already done, except it's called task assignment. So let's get rid of that F there. So it says assignment, request number, everything else I think is good to go. We're happy with that. Let's save our progress so far. Okay, so that's going to be my entire message. Dear recipient, you've been assigned a task for request number, whatever, task instructions and link to access the request are shown below. So here is our task instructions, and then we have our click here to view the request form. We're good. That's our entire message. So we need to close this embedded section. So we'll go back to layout and we'll go to embedded section end, and that ends our embedded section. So we now have an encapsulated message that has its own email data control for task assignment. So as I said earlier, what we are going to do is we are going to immediately throw in our next section control. So we're going to throw in a new embedded section, and we'll just call this section resubmit. And now I just have to start with the message that I want to send to the user. Actually, there is an even better way of doing this in terms of spacing. I can just hit enter here. And because my break is inside, so my line break from where my email data control is, that line break is contained inside my embedded section. And so it will not show up. There'll just be an extra blank line at the bottom of the email, and who cares? Nobody will see that anyway. So it doesn't matter in most cases. But I am going to ensure that the end embedded section and the brand new embedded section control are abutted against each other so that I can begin my next message. And my new message is for the task reassignment, apparently, since I called this a section resubmit. So this is going to be for my, not my task reassignment, for the initiator resubmittal task. So an approver has requested a change or additional information for request number request number. And I may have some other things, please. Please review their comments below. Now, I'm not sure if I think I did. I think I required comments for resubmission. If I didn't, we're going to have to go back in. We're going to check, but I want comments for resubmission because I do need to show those comments to the end user. Now, this is going to be a little troublesome, and it's going to be a little troublesome because of I don't know what activity will have occurred prior to the initiator resubmittal. So I don't know if this is going to come back to me from the supervisor or whether it's going to come back to me from the manager. So this might be a little more complicated, but let's work this out. We're going to go Control Bold, Approver Comments, and then we'll turn our bold off. And now we're going to drop in a couple of system variable controls. Now, what I need is the activity result for the appropriate activity, whether it's supervisor approval or manager approval. So we'll go to other controls. We'll go to our system variable control, and we'll go activity result. In fact, this is going to be a little more complicated. What we should probably do is take a look at the activity result system variable. Activity result system variable. We need to put in the activity result. So we'll start off with supervisor approval. And then we'll need to use a formatter. Format equals comments. Comments. Well, we'll get it there sooner or later. Activity result, supervisor approval, format equals comments. And we'll just call this supervisor comments. And then we're just going to add another one. System variable control. And in this case, it's manager approval. Format equals comments, and we'll call this manager comments. Okay, and I threw these right next to each other. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show or hide these controls based on a condition. And I haven't figured out my condition in my head yet, but we'll build something that works, I'm sure. So I want my approver comments. It's either going to be my supervisor comments or my manager comments. And I have used the activity result system variable. So why have I done that? Well, let's go take a look at the documentation for our system variables, and timeline activity system variables and activity result. So here are all of the things that I can do for, it's not activity result. Duh. It is activity users. Activity instance, activity result, activity run date, activity, there it is, activity users. This is the one that we want. I used the wrong one. I used activity result. It should have been activity users. Now, remember from last week, or maybe the week before that, signature comments are weird. They're not form controls, and their value isn't saved with the form. Their value is saved with the process timeline activity. And to retrieve them, I have to pull them out of the process timeline activity. Activity users, by default, will return the name of the user who completed the activity. We need to use a or is it activity users complete? I'm going to remember it sooner or later. Yep, it is activity users complete. Darn it. So I've got a third time is the charm. It's activity users complete. I knew it was one of these. We have to use this formatter right here, format equals comments, because we do not want to return the specific comments, or we don't want to return the specific name or the specific result of the user. What we want to return is what they said. So we have to use this format equals comments, and we have to use the right system variable, which is activity users complete. So I am going to have to change those. So activity users complete, and we'll go back here to supervisor comments, and we'll reset that. Activity users complete, and what we are going to get are the comments that they left in the signature comments field in our process director form. So that's very important. We could, in fact, get even more. In fact, I could probably even make this simpler. We do have result for a result name. Well, no, I can't really make it simpler. because I'm pulling activity users complete and I've got to provide the activity name. So I still have to have the two system variables because I've got to know what activity I am returning the comments from. I can winnow it down even further to a specific result. So, for initiator resubmitter, for example, although I'm never going to be in this activity unless somebody has clicked initiator resubmitter. So I don't really need to narrow it down that much further. What I really just need are the activity users complete system variable. What I really need is format equals comments. So I return the comment that was left by the user. So we'll go back here. We'll take our supervisor comment and our manager comment. And I just realized something. There are no control properties for system variable controls. So I've got supervisor comments and manager comments. You know what? I'm going to make life easier for me. I'm not going to try to go back in because I could create another embedded section control to show supervisor comments and then another embedded section control to show manager comments. And then in those embedded sections, I could set up the conditions for whether the activity result for supervisor approval was initiator resubmittal, or whether it's for manager comments. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to say supervisor comments. I'm just going to make it easy. And then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to a new line, Control B, manager comments. And that way they'll just see everybody's comments, whether it's supervisor or manager. In most cases, one of these is going to be blank. I don't think they'll ever be, the way that I've got it constructed, I think one of these will always be blank. In fact, if that is true, let me test that out. Only one of these will ever have comments, right? If I have deny, that'll be a comment, but it won't go back to the initiator. So if I hit initiator resubmittal, there'll be comments and it will go back to the initiator. I'll never get to the initiator unless somebody hit initiator resubmittal. And that can only happen one time at a time. So you know what? I think I am fine not even worrying about this. Only one of these two system variables, I think, now that I think about how I've constructed my process, I think only one of these will ever have content that I will see as the initiator at any time. So I can go with approver comments, and I think that gets me where I want to go. Only one of these should ever be, well, we'll have content, and so I should only see one message at a time. So I think I'm fine. Now, as always, I probably want to just copy these two lines up here and paste them down here so that you get the task instructions and the click here to view the request form. And then I'm going to drop in another email data control. And this control, I will say the subject is request resubmittal for request number to pull that off of the form for my system variable. And I think that does it for me. We'll just go to the next line. We'll drop in my embedded section end, and then we'll drop in our embedded section control for the next section. And this one we will call section final. And in this one, I can make my life simple again. Oh, whoa, oh, what have I done? Okay, I don't know what I did, but it looks like it saved everything, so I'm fine. So in my final section, let's try it again. Your submission for request number, I didn't put my colon in, is now complete. Throw a space in there, and we'll grab our control there. Click here to review the disposition. There we go. So now I've got your request is now complete. I could have made it a little more complex and added one for if my request was approved and one for if it was denied. I really don't feel like jumping through all of those hoops at this point. So we're just going to do that, and we're going to throw in a final email data control. Other controls. Am I just blind? It sure would be helpful if those things were in alphabetical order, wouldn't it? For this email control, say final disposition request number colon request number. And that, I think, is fine. That's my final disposition header for this email. And we have to do one more thing, which is to drop in our embedded section end. Great. We now have 3 sections on our control to send 3 different messages based on what we're doing. Now, because we have these 3 sections, we have to set up the mutually exclusive conditions that determine when each of these activities are firing. So for our first one, we only want it to run if we are running in manager approval or supervisor approval. So we'll go into set display, field is visible when, and we'll click otherwise hidden real fast because we only want it visible when my the easiest and most understandable way of doing this would just to say, okay, if running activity name equals, oh, I didn't select the timeline definition. Okay, let me show you something that's cool that I didn't do when I created the email template. We're going to go ahead and hit save and close form. I forget to do this all the time, and I clearly forgot to do it whenever I created the initial email template. No, it is an email template, and I can't do it. I was about to say I think I can associate this email template with a timeline. I can't. So let's go back to my condition. So normally, if you're doing a timeline based deal, you can pick timeline activity. You still can here. I would just have to select building apps timeline, and I'd have to configure it every single time. And once I did that, then I would be able to say, okay, well, let's do it for supervisor approval. That would certainly work. Unfortunately, this is an email template. That association doesn't work on email templates. So you know what we're going to use? We're going to use contains, and we are going to use the string, and we'll use supervisor. So if the activity contains supervisor or the running activity name, I said if the activity contains supervisor, obviously that should have been if the activity name contains supervisor, or if the activity name contains manager, I want this section to be visible. And then for my second one, that's my initiator resubmittal activity. So once again, we are going to go to our display options. Field is visible when otherwise hidden, and we'll click to create condition. And in this case, we'll say whether my running activity name timeline activity, running activity name. I am having a hard time seeing these options today. I think I called it initiator resubmittal. So if it contains initiator, so if the running activity name contains the word initiator, then this message will be visible. It will otherwise be hidden. And my third condition should be field is visible when my running activity name, timeline activity, running activity name contains I think I called it disposition notification. And those are my three conditions. They're all mutually exclusive. Each one of these is always hidden unless that particular condition is true. So if it's not true, they'll be false. And so I've only got one of three things can be true at any given time. And in fact, it'd probably be easier to see if we can just compare these on the form controls tab of the definition here. Okay, so we've got my email data controls. That's not what I care about. I care about my section controls. I called it approval section ultimately. Okay, well, here's something cool. I can go type section and just filter, and it'll only show me my section controls. So I've got 3 controls. I know this may be hard for you to see on Zoom. Each of these should be now all mutually exclusive. Only one of these things can be true at any given time. When manager approval or supervisor approval are running, I should see the approval section. Otherwise, that's hidden. When I'm in initiator resubmittal, I called it section embedded 14. It's very important that we name our sections. So section resubmit, if it's initiator resubmittal, this is visible. It's invisible otherwise. And then finally, the section embedded 14, which technically should be called section disposition or something like that, will only run when my running activity name contains the term disposition. All right, so now we need to test our email template to see if it works. So we're going to go to our building apps form, and we're going to run it. So QQQ, www, I've got information, and we are going to have to talk about this in terms of our email template in just a minute, but we'll get there. I'm going to go ahead and submit my form. So my form is submitted. I am now in the supervisor approval activity. Now, what I expect, if I look way over here on my right, and I hit send and receive, what I would expect to get are my emails. And I got a lot of them last week. Why am I not getting emails now? Got all the normal notifications. I am in supervisor. Well, let me be sure that, let's move my form over here. You know, one of the tedious things about building stuff live is that you are in fact building it live, which places on you the necessity for troubleshooting. Things don't work out. So, yeah. Initiator resubmittal, notify participant when activity starts. Participant should be me. So why am I not getting the emails? Because last week I forgot to turn those check boxes off here, and I got a ton of them as we were testing last week. Didn't mean to maximize that. Okay, so if I go not good enough and hit initiator resubmittal, it takes me to initiator resubmittal. I can update here, and that would take me back to supervisor approval, and I am still not receiving any emails. Is it going into junk? It does not appear to be. Okay, well, let's finish this then. So let's hit approve for my supervisor approval, and we'll hit approve for manager approval. That should complete our task or our tasks. And let's now go and see what is going on with our email. Oh, wait a second. I did get it. Finally, I've gotten an email. You've been assigned a task for request number 10. The task instructions, well, unknown sysvar, task instructions. So that's got to be fixed. So let's go back to my email. Now, why did it take so long to get that email through to me? That was a painfully long wait. They usually come in super quick. Let's go to here. Let's go to this task instructions. And because I copied and pasted it, they're all going to be wrong. And you know what's wrong? I did not include the underscore task underscore instructions. That means that this will also be wrong. Task underscore instructions. Okay. So let's save that. That should give me a good look at my task instructions. Again, I'm not sure why my email is so slow, but here they all are now coming in. Of course, they're all wrong, except, well, I mean, I did get an approver has requested a change. So that is my request resubmittal for request 10. Here is my task assignment with the bad task instructions. So I'm getting all the emails. They are just filtering in very, very slowly. And finally, here is my final disposition. Request 10 is now complete. I can click and there's my form. So we are good there. Everything looking the way it is supposed to look. Let's go ahead and close that window. So, all right, my emails are going through. Still they're bad emails because they're misconfigured, but they are going through the way that I want them to. So we're going to do one more test here. Now that I've corrected that system variable. So ZZZ, XXX, we'll submit. That will take us to our supervisor approval. And once again, we're going to go do the same thing. We're going to approve. Then we're going to do an initiator resubmittal and complete that resubmittal and then resubmit. So I am now in manager approval. So I'm going to go ahead and place this is your manager saying that your request is bad. Make it not bad. All right. And I'm going to hit initiator resubmittal. Cool. It's now back to me as the initiator. So I am going to say, we'll pretend I've changed something. We'll hit update. And that will restart our approval. So my supervisor will approve. My manager will now approve. And then it should go to our final disposition. And if I go back into my email and I hit send and receive, nothing happens. So there's clearly some delay. So let's move on and talk about one more thing on our email template that we might want to change. That's not our email template. But it is our form. So let's take a look at our form. I have two form fields here. I've ignored them so far. I've got request info and I've got, I think it's called either more info or other info. It's called other info. So I've got request info and other info. Now on our email template, I've only included so far the basics. However, for a approver, in order to help make their decision a little bit easier, it's often useful to provide some important information to them so that they can make a more informed decision simply by reading the email. This is also true if, which we're not going to discuss in this round, but it is possible to do approval solely by email, where the supervisor gets an email, they just reply to the email with, approve or deny or resubmit, whatever. That email then, when they reply, goes to an email inbox. You can import those emails from that inbox periodically into Process Director, process the emails, parse the response from the user, and based on whether they used, approve or deny or resubmit, you can process that as a task completion, and they can complete their task solely by email. Now, I've got an entire webinar on email completion because it requires a fair amount of setup, and you have to be able to have an import deal, and you have to have a process that processes all of your imported email messages. It's a thing, and we're not going to talk about it directly. You should just know that it's possible, and I've got a webinar on it that you can grab off of YouTube. If I'm going to do something like that, then I need to be able to give my approver the information that they need to be able to just reply to that email, approve or deny, and move on with their day. They don't have to log into Process Director. They don't have to do any of the other stuff that they would normally have to do. They just get their email, they log in, they get their email, they hit reply, they put in their approval or disapproval text, and they hit send, and then they're done. They never have to log into Process Director. They can be, on the other side of the world with no access to it. Doesn't matter. As long as they have email, they can respond. So to do that, I'm going to have to give them the appropriate information. So for our task assignment, I'm going to throw in another section here called Other Information. And then I am going to throw in request info. And I'm not sure I want that bold-faced. So request info, and whatever's in the request info field, and then we'll go with other info, and we'll throw in what is in the other info field. So request info, other info, and then of course we have their click here to view the request. And I can go ahead and make that change. It doesn't make any huge change other than add some additional information to my request. And we'll hit OK there. And we'll do another round here because apparently there is a wait for emails coming in. So we'll need a couple of minutes apparently to get our new version of this in. So we will just hit run for our building apps form. And here is the info. And here's more info. And now I will submit, and I'm just going to approve my way through this because all we want to do is see the email that I received. So we'll hit approve, and that will complete our run through there. Now let's look at our previous run through. So here is my first email. Task assignment, request number 11 by Dale Franks on 8/20. That looks good. I've been assigned a task. The supervisor dumped this on you, so now it's your problem. And we'll hit OK. I'm no longer running in that timeline activity. So I know that the link works because it told me I'm not running in that activity anymore because I've finished it. So this was the manager approval activity. And Here is the one I should have showed first. This is the supervisor activity. You're this person's supervisor. You deal with it. Again, if I click here, my task is already completed because I ran through it real quickly. So it knows that I'm not running in that activity anymore. So obviously this was the right process timeline activity. And okay, I closed the email. And here is my request resubmittal. So the approver requested the change, and this is your manager saying that your request is bad. Make it not bad. I have both of the activities there, so that returns my name for the supervisor activity. I think I would actually have to go back and throw in those. Now I think I am going to have to go in and embed more embedded sections, because this Dale Franks that he's showing me here, I didn't make any comments, but if I use format equals comments, I forgot this. If I use format equals comments and there are no comments, then by default, the activity users complete system variable will still return the name of the user who completed the activity, even if there are no comments. So it is returning Dale Franks. So I'm going to need to hide this Dale Franks here, because that's not what I want to see. Because if I had supervisor comments, then they would be here and Dale Franks would be here. So we would have to go back in and do the embedded section control stuff. We're kind of running out of time, but we'll see if we can make a pass at that before we go. So, by the way, once I added those form fields into my email, this is what I got. There's my other information, and here's my request info and other info. So I've provided the additional information I would need to be able to just reply to this form and hit approve or deny if I was working in that context. Let's go back to my building apps email template. In the time we have left, I'm going to have to fix this supervisor and manager comments here. So I am going to drop in a embedded section control. I guess I better name it section supervisor comments. And then we'll have to come between these two controls and drop in an embedded section end and an embedded section control that we are going to call section manager comments. And then at the very end there, we are going to drop in an embedded section end control. Okay, so I have a problem here in that depending on where I am, it is going to provide me with approver comments or supervisor comments, but only one of those is going to be valid at any given time. So I'm going to have to set visibility conditions on these controls. So we will say that this field is visible when, and we will pull an activity result. Timeline activity activity result. Oh, I am in a form template or in an email template. I always forget that I'm in an email template. So I have to manually do this. So building apps TL, and this is supervisor, I think. So if supervisor approval contains resubmit, I want this section to be shown. And then here, for my manager comments, I'm going to do something similar. Field is visible when otherwise hidden. And we'll hit add condition, timeline activity, activity result. And of course, we have to link to our timeline. Building apps TL and manager approval contains resubmit. All right, so now I have two separate ones, two separate embedded sections, only one of which should ever be visible at any one given time. Let's test that to see if that is true. I want you to notice, by the way, that I'm not doing this testing thing simply to just do it. This is how I would actually build an application. I would do these, I guess you could call them unit tests. I would do these tiny unit tests constantly. Anytime that I added a functionality or took something off or made any edit at all, I would make these changes and then immediately do a test and run through it. Whatever was the change, I would run through a way to catch that change. And so that's what we're going to do this time. So we're going to go with our, and by the way, while we're here, let me delete all of these emails that have come in from our last couple of runs through so that I have an empty email box. And we're going to build our building apps form. So what we're testing is to be sure that I get just the appropriate resubmission comments and only one at a time in my email. So we're going to do a resubmit at both the supervisor level and at the manager level. Then we're going to go take a look and see what our email looks like. And that will probably stop us for today. So we'll just say this is the supervisor requests resubmission. I don't care about the spelling. I'll just hit initiator resubmittal. And now as the initiator, I'll update it. It will go back to the supervisor. It's going to restart my loop again. I'm going to approve this time. Now it's going to go to manager approval. And I'll just say, you're asking for another run. And I will hit initiator resubmittal again. And this is, by the way, where testing gets super tedious, because I might have to run through this entire process several times to actually get the results that I want. And so I'm going to do my final approval here, and I should be getting some emails in now. Okay. Comment embedded section equal 1. Dale Franks, manager, asking for another run. So it is not giving me my appropriate embedded section. I thought I could embed a section in a section. Perhaps I was wrong about that. And if I was, I'm going to have to do a little wizardry on how I make this work. So, well, that's not good. I can't use a curly bracket in the name. So that's going to be all higgledy-piggledy. And section manager comments has no curly bracket. All right, well, we're going to have to give her another try to test this out. So real quick, submit. And there we go. So there's some comments, initiate a resubmittal, update, approve, manager approval, initiate a resubmittal, update, and now we'll just approve our way through supervisor and manager. Now we're done with that run. So let's see, that came in at 11:40. Okay, we're going to have to wait here for just a second. Sorry, I'm looking over these old emails. I don't think the new ones have come in yet. So let me hit delete again. Let me try to do a quick refresh to see if I can get a send and receive. To get my emails in. We're still waiting for the emails. Not sure why my email is working so slow today. Okay, so I've got my task assignment. Great. That is the manager approval activity. And these emails are just coming in slow as Christmas. They're all coming in all at one time. All right. Well, I'm still faced with the same problem. The Dale Franks and then the comment. And so let's see, that is manager approval. They're not coming in order either. So I'm not sure which ones are coming in, but there we go. Approver comments. That's what I wanted to see. And that's for request number 14. So that is exactly what I wanted to see with just one approver comment and the other blank. So that worked. There is my final disposition. What request number am I on now, by the way? Let's go with our form instances. Okay, so that was request number 14. So yes, that is fine. That is what I wanted to see, where I only saw one set of approver comments, and that's what we got, one set of approver comments. But there are other ones coming in for 14, and they are not in order. So that's a little irksome. Let's see. Task assignment, final disposition, request resubmittal. That looks like the one we're looking at now. Where's my other request resubmittal? for request number 14. Okay, I don't know. I must have deleted it, but this one looks fine. It's working. So I'm, I think, a happy camper so far with that one. Well, nope, here was the other one. And it still has that there. And I am no longer logged in. Click login to continue. Okay. Well, playing around with that email took up a lot of time. But you know what? It is 11:45 anyway. So we should probably shut this down because we still have to, there's still a, I'm going to check in the interim. I'm going to check in to be sure that I have this email template configured correctly so that I only see one of my messages. So we'll get that figured out and taken care of. It may just be that I'm using the wrong condition. When the supervisor activity fires, it's only showing me one message. And that's great because manager activity hasn't fired yet. So there is no completed user. So it would show me nothing. But when manager fires, it's still showing me the original supervisor activity. So I've got something wrong with my condition. I need to fix that. I'll do that over the next week or so. And the next week we'll start off what will complete the last remaining bits of email templates. And then we'll move into knowledge views, and we'll build some knowledge views and do whatever else that you have any questions or anything like that. We'll do a Q&A on that one as well. If you have any questions, we'll be able to run through those then. For now, though, let's say goodbye. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. So long.